higher self.
Lynn, welcome ladies and gentlemen to our monthly Cobra interview. Your hosts today are Lynn and Richard. Our goal with these Cobra interviews, as with our website, is to inform, educate, and prepare for coming events. Please remember that no one has all the answers all the time. Remember that your internal guidance is the key, and always go with what resonates with that guidance. I would like to welcome back our warrior of the light and liaison with the resistance movement, Cobra. Welcome, Cobra. Cobra, thank you again for the invitation. Lynn, okay. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into the questions. Richard, hello Cobra, this is Richard. I'm very happy to be here again. Cobra, can you estimate the percentage of planets that hold a physical 3D life form? Cobra, okay. I would say maybe 10% of solar systems or 20% of solar systems in the galaxy have a planet that can support life forms. I'm not speaking about humanoid life form, but I'm speaking any type of life form. Richard, is the third density always a lower level of consciousness? Cobra, it is lower level of consciousness on planets that are occupied, but physical plane or third dimension is just a reflection of the spirit. It's not lower or higher. It is simply one aspect, one expression of the creation. Lynn, Cobra, you have said that the event will clear the primary anomaly, resulting in an immediate shift for all incarnated beings and the Earth herself, and initiating an ascension process. You have also said that until the network that supports them is completely disabled, our implants reset daily. So, is any primary anomaly being cleared when we experience darkness and consciously choose to forgive and to love it? Cobra, okay. Any conscious act that we undertake clears one aspect of the primary anomaly. Every positive act clears one aspect of the primary anomaly. Richard, Cobra, is it true that ETs and underground civilizations come up to the surface populations periodically and present themselves as gods or ascended masters? Cobra, no, it's not true. Lynn, how long ago did primary anomaly begin to be accumulated around the Earth? Cobra, okay, this process was happening through millions upon millions of years slowly, but began to accelerate drastically 5K years ago. Lynn, originally, did we all come here to assist with the task of the Earth's transformation? Cobra, not everybody, but certain number of star beings came from many different star systems to assist in this. Richard, after the event, will the ascension process always result in a physical density shift for the individual? Cobra, the ascension process culminates in the actual ascension. And the actual ascension always means transcending all lower planes of creation. Physical, astral, mental. You can of course always then materialize those bodies as a hologram, but you're not in any way attached to them. You're in no way attached to those planes anymore after your ascension process is complete. Richard, so after the ascension process, if we wanted to come back to Earth, we can just manifest a physical body, and just leave it when we're done. Cobra, yes, but it is not an actual physical body. It is a light body projection hologram towards the physical plane. It is not an actual physical body. Richard, can you describe how the transition we currently call death will change after the event? Cobra, it will be much more conscious. Everybody will understand the process, and they will know where they will be going, and there will be no fear associated with that process. Lynn, Cobra, I was thinking about, as you were answering that last question, you know how sometimes people will be in a situation where they are going to step off a curb, and there's an oncoming car, and somebody will just appear and push them out of the way. Is this something like you were describing? Is it sort of like a physical manifestation that maybe a guardian angel or what a guide is doing to protect that person? Cobra, yes. Many times light forces can intervene in the situation for a fraction of a second, especially when human lives need to be saved. It cannot happen every time and everywhere, but it does happen sometimes under certain circumstances. Lynn, I've heard of situations like this, and the person would be wanting to thank the individual who got them out of the way of an impending accident, and they weren't able to locate the person afterwards, so that's why, I even thought about this. So that makes sense, thank you. Can you describe how time is experienced on a higher dimensional level or in the universe? Cobra, okay. Time is experienced as a flow of energy, not so much as a linear concept with past, present, and future, but it's more like eternal now, which still moves, and there is still a time vector from the past to the present and into the future, but it is experienced more multidimensionally, with much greater understanding of cause and effect of our actions. Richard, Cobra, does primary anomaly have anything to do with the third density experience of time? Cobra, of course it is connected, but this is not the basic aspect of the primary anomaly. Lynn, recently you said that all of the other universes had been integrated into this one. What do you mean by that? Cobra, it means that there was an integration unification process to which the universes merged, and through that merger, a higher consciousness, higher understanding, and a higher evolution of all those universes was achieved. Lynn, are all the dimensional levels always present in creation? Cobra, yes. Richard, are the Wingmakers the central race that you referenced in a recent interview? Cobra, yes. Lynn, after the event, will there still be alien races at odds with one another? Cobra, no. Actually what will happen, as this planet is the last planet to be liberated, there will be a great integration process of all the factions that is happening on the planet. And this process has been ongoing for quite much time throughout the galaxy, and now we are in the final phase of that process. Lynn, so we'll all live happily ever after? Cobra, in a way, yes. There will still be work that needs to be done. A lot of healing that needs to be done, but basically when the darkness is removed it will be much easier. Richard, Cobra, what is discernment? Cobra, discernment is ability to understand and to comprehend the relationship between various aspects of creation. Richard, can you offer any practical advice for the development of discernment? Cobra, you need to create a connection with your own higher self, with your own inner guidance and train that connection through the feedback from our own life experience, and integrating that higher guidance with your mind, and with your emotions, and with your body. Richard, you sort of get to feel whether it's true or not, is that what you're saying? Cobra, you don't just feel if it's true or not. You combine your intuitional guidance with what you know, with what you feel, and what you experience. Lynn, is it true that after the event, third density human vehicles will not age and die as they do now? Cobra, human beings will still go through an aging process, but it will be much easier, and there will be technologies that will greatly assist in reversing that. So the event is not the end of everything. It's not a sudden miraculous shift. It's the beginning of a process that will result in much better existence for everybody. Richard, Cobra, do you have any comments on the Egypt Air MS-804 that disappeared from radar over the Mediterranean last week? Cobra, you have any specific question about that? Richard, no, just wondering if you have any knowledge if it really happened, is it true? Cobra, there was involvement of certain factions from Israel and from some other countries that wanted to create conflict. There were even some hopes that they would trigger international conflict or war, but those hopes were of course, not based on reality. Lynn, Cobra, can you tell us what a ley line is? Cobra, A ley line is a stream of energy. In most cases etheric or plasma energy which flows like a river through the energy grid around the planet. Ley lines are like energy veins that transmit energy through the energy body of the Earth. Lin, are ley lines and grid lines the same thing? Cobra, very similar. Lin, can you tell us what the difference is? Cobra, ley lines in most cases are mostly etheric and plasma poles between two vortex points when the grid lines are also the same. In another context, for example, the mantle or higher planes of creation, and also the energy flow through grid lines, are a little bit different. Lin, so, when people are working on the Earth, are they working on ley lines, grid lines, or both? Cobra, mostly they are working on ley lines. Lin, okay. Are the ley lines related to the vortexes? Cobra, yes, of course. Lin, where are the major intersections of the world's ley lines? Cobra, there is a map that I could show you but I cannot describe it with words, the exact positions of all those intersections. Lin, is it possible in a future post of yours that you put up that map? Cobra, it might be possible. We will see what will happen. Lin, have major historical events happened along the lines? Cobra, I would not say the physical manifestation of those events, but I would say the causes that triggered those events originated from the ley lines, or from the vortexes which are located on the ley line intersections. Lin, are the ley lines related to anything in the cosmos? Cobra, yes, of course there is a cosmic grid which goes throughout the universe. There is the galactic grid. There is the grid in the solar system and they are all connected with the planetary grid and with the ley lines. It is a living organism of the universe. Lin, okay. Thank you. Richard, what is a cycle in regards to a planet's evolution? Cobra, there are many cosmic cycles and planets evolve. The evolution scale is in billions of years. There are many sub-cycles to that cycle. We have, for example, a 225 million year galactic cycle, one galactic rotation, and all planets in the galaxy are synchronized with that galactic cycle, geologic development of the planets. It's connected with the galactic cycle. Richard, what determines a planet's evolutionary cycle? Cobra, as I've already said, one aspect is the galactic cycle, the other aspect is the behavior and evolution of the Sun, or double star, or multiple star in that star system where that planet is located, and there are also cosmic stellar currents which influence the evolution of the planet. Richard, Cobra, what is an age? Cobra, an age is just a description of a certain time period. Lin, Cobra, is Hillary Clinton a clone? Cobra, no. Lin, are there other people that could possibly be acting as clones? Cobra, basically there are clones which are sourced in certain locations as a backup, but people, the politicians, are real people and not clones. They are incarnated, most likely Draco, originating entities in humanoid bodies. Richard, Cobra, is Chelsea Clinton actually Bill and Hillary's daughter? Cobra, I have already answered this question in one of the interviews. Lin, Cobra, can you confirm that the recent disclosure by Benjamin Fulford about human trafficking of people and their organs, is this true? Cobra, yes, because I have also received the same intel from some of the Russian contacts, and unfortunately most of this is correct. Lin, at this time, can something be done about this? Cobra, yes, of course. What can be done is to inform and educate people about this, because when there is enough consciousness about this, it will be much easier to remove this and solve this. Lin, are there well-known public figures, American, or European, or Middle Eastern, that are involved, and who are they? Cobra, Yes, there are many people that belong to the Illuminati network that are involved, and the names are all over the place. Richard, you have talked about people held hostage, or being held as slaves on other planets in our solar system, and in our universe. What progress has been made to freeing those hostages? Cobra, the situation in our solar system is much better. The number of those hostages is much lower, but on the surface of the planet, the whole surface population is taken hostage in 9-to-5 slavery jobs. It's not as harsh of an existence, for example the slaves in Roman times, but still human beings are not free, and now it's time to liberate the planet. Lynn, Cobra, it is rumored that Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter. Can you confirm this? Cobra, yes, she is related to that particular entity. Lynn, is Angela Merkel a clone or a reptilian or something else? Cobra, she is not a clone, she is a reptilian draconian human hybrid incarnated in a human body. Lynn, why is she in charge of Germany and can you tell us anything else about her? Cobra, simply because the Illuminati put her in that position, and there is a strong resistance in Germany against her actions lately, and hopefully there will be changes happening in Germany, and for sure there will be changes happening in Germany after the event regarding this. Richard, Cobra, what progress is being made with the refugees in Europe? Cobra, okay. The flow of refugees into Europe has been decreased greatly and the light forces are resolving the problem of infiltration, because they are not just refugees. A small percentage of those people are actually members of the dark forces, and light forces have identified them, and they are blocking 99.99% of their actions. Richard, Cobra, can the countries of refuge send them back home? Send the refugees back to where they came from. Cobra, it depends on their decision and the extent of control in those countries the cabal controls. This process of balancing the situation will be completely resolved only after the event. Lynn, Cobra, are you familiar with biokinesis? Cobra, not exactly. Lynn, this is the power of the mind to change physical aspects like eye color, hair color, or stature. People do this using a meditation process. The questioner was asking, she said it was done primarily in Brazil, and she was wondering if this can cause any kind of problem. Cobra, no, because if it's done from the right perspective, of course, mind is over matter, and matter will obey the command of the mind, or shall I rather say, the command of the spirit, and if it's done from the right motivation, there can be no side effects. Richard, in our last interview you said Jesus thought the shift of consciousness would happen in his time 2000 years ago. What type of knowledge was he going to teach in order to bring that consciousness and awareness to the masses? Cobra, it is not about knowledge, it is about the presence of love. This is his message, and this will be his message after the event. Lynn, did Jesus meditate? Cobra, yes. Lynn, did he teach certain meditation practices? Cobra, yes, to a selected group of his disciples. Lynn, do you know any of the meditations or processes that he practiced and taught? Cobra, not personally, but I can find them if that is necessary, but I would say that his techniques were similar to the techniques of many yogis at that time. Richard, Cobra, what qualities would a being on another planet be like, with the same level of consciousness as humans? Without the primary anomaly, without the negativity involved. Cobra, without the primary anomaly the situation would be much different, because the primary anomaly is the main reason why there is any blockage to the evolution. Without the primary anomaly there are no limits. Richard, so they on those planets don't actually experience negativity the same way we do. Cobra, no. It's quite an unusual occurrence to experience something that we are experiencing here. Richard, A lot of people say that it's necessary for evolution to experience negativity. Would you agree with that? Cobra, I would absolutely not agree. That was a teaching that was disseminated by the archons to keep people enslaved. It is absolutely not necessary, and it is harmful for the development. Lin, Cobra, do other species on other planets who are capable of understanding genetics and creating new life bring life to Earth? Cobra, yes, very advanced species were creating life forms, and also planet Earth was one focal point of their experiment. Richard, Cobra, can you please explain how dimensions work? How many dimensions are there? How is consciousness related to dimensions? Cobra, dimensions are just descriptions of states of vibration of matter. Matter and spirit are two aspects of the same thing, the same energy field. And if that energy field gets more dense, we have physical matter, which is what some people term the third dimension, and if it gets rarefied, we go to the fourth dimension of the etheric and astral plane. If it gets even more rarefied, we have the fifth dimension of the mental pale, and this continues on until we get to absolute rarefied matter, which is absolutely spirit, which is absolutely connected with the source. And there are just various manifestations of the one. Richard, how is spirit evolution related to dimensions and consciousness? Cobra, dimensions are just playgrounds, they are just spaces of expression, possible ways how consciousness or source can manifest. The evolution of spirit is not defined by dimensions. It is defined by level of integration with the source, and this level of integration can manifest in any dimension. Richard, another question, can you give a general idea of how the spirit evolution works? What is a being, how does it start off, and what are you capable of when it reaches the level of source? Cobra, when it reaches the level of source, actually the consciousness encompasses the whole universe, all pasts and all present and all futures. Lin, are there or have there ever been human healers on Earth that can cure any disease, physical disfigurements, or even grow limbs back? Cobra, there have been many claims of such healers, but the only healers who could actually do that are the ascended beings, and ascended beings very rarely manifest on the physical plane of planet Earth. Richard, is it true that Jesus was able to heal? Cobra, yes, he was able to heal quite much. He had assistance of very advanced ET technology, so it was not just him, it was a joint project with our space brothers and sisters. Richard, so he didn't actually have this ability when he came here. He learned it through his lifetime. Cobra, he learned it through his lifetime and he had assistance. Richard, is it possible for regular humans to heal the way he did? Cobra, it's possible for anybody who dedicates his life to this, to reach that, but it takes time and practice. Richard, by any chance do you know the practice or where we can find that practice, so we can learn to heal the way he did? Cobra, it's not a technique or certain spiritual discipline, it's a path that each person needs to travel on their own. Lin, what is the meaning and purpose of yoga? Cobra, the meaning and purpose of yoga is union with the source. Lin, how long has yoga been practiced on Earth? Cobra, yoga has been practiced since as soon as conscious beings came to the Earth. Yoga came with star beings that entered this solar system and entered this planet. Lin, can you take a guess at how many possible different forms of yoga there are? Cobra, again this is just a human mind that would like to characterize or analyze yoga. There are as many approaches as there are beings present in the universe. Richard, is it possible for humans to bring life back to an expired animal? Cobra, it is possible. It's not very easy, but it is possible. Richard, how is this possible? Cobra, it is possible if there is not too much time which has elapsed since the moment of that, and if the source that caused that had to occur is removed, then the soul of the animal can, under certain circumstances, return into the body. Lin, Cobra, are you familiar with Paramashiva Yoga? Cobra, not exactly. Richard, Cobra, when working with an ascended being, how would they communicate with you? Cobra, they would communicate with you in a way that you would be able to understand. So in many cases, they communicate through inner vision, through telepathic communication, and sometimes they materialize a body which looks like a physical body, and you can hear them, and see them, and perceive with your physical senses. Lin, what were humans and the planet Earth like before the anomaly or darkness came to Earth? Cobra, it was a paradise planet, and all legends of, I would say, many different tribes and ethnic groups around the planet remember that time of a paradise. This existence was without much suffering, without the conflict that we are experiencing in our current age. Richard, Cobra, do highly evolved beings, super evolved beings, create universes and the laws of the universe? Cobra, very evolved beings did create universes, but those beings who did create universes are now moving on another stage of their evolution. Lin, are you familiar with quantum tunneling? Cobra, not exactly. Richard, Cobra, who is Shiva? And what is that being's connection to this universe? Cobra, Shiva is one of the creator entities that was present when this solar system was created, and certain aspects of this galaxy were created. And the purpose of that entity was to create certain aspects of creation, learn through that creation, and then dissolve that creation back into the source. Lin, Cobra, this is a broad question, but the asker is asking if you could explain this to the best of your knowledge. What is the true nature of God's plan for humanity? Cobra, the true nature of the divine plan is to return humanity back to the source. Richard, Cobra, will you explain the origin and purpose and importance of the laws of karma? Cobra, I have answered this question many times. The law of karma is an artificial construct which was created by the archons to spiritually control and enslave beings, or entities in this quarantine status, and usually the explanation of the law of karma is if you have done something, you have consequences one way or the other. It is a distorted interpretation of the law of manifestation. Of course your actions have consequences, but it is not true that we are now experiencing certain bad things because we have done something in one of our past lifetimes. We are experiencing bad things, because this planet is occupied, and somebody is doing those bad things, and we have to resist. And we have to liberate the planet so those things will not happen anymore. Lin, Cobra, the time we are currently living in, is it just the end of a cycle or is it the time of a total reset of the entire universe? Cobra, it is an end of a cycle. It is not a total reset of the universe, but I would say it's a restructuring of a certain aspect of the universe. It is the restructuring of the primary anomaly, which is one important part of the cosmic evolution, but it's not the only part. Richard, Cobra, what is magic? Cobra, magic is a science of manifestation. It's an occult science which describes how we can manifest our ideas towards the physical plane by handling energies. Lin, Cobra, what is witchcraft? Cobra, witchcraft is an ancient practice of magic which can be used in a positive or a negative way. Jesuits and some other archon forces have tried to put a bad light on witchcraft and describe it as something negative, because there were many female healers that were using this practice to heal and improve the conditions of their fellow living beings around the planet. So witchcraft originally is just a practice of using those energies in a spiritual scientific way, to improve the living conditions for beings around us. Richard, so Cobra, what is sorcery? And what are the differences between magic and sorcery? Cobra, Sorcery is a very limited aspect of magic, which uses just certain techniques, or basic approaches without deeper understandings of the forces which are being evoked. Lin, Cobra, can you tell us the differences between chemistry and alchemy? Cobra, chemistry is a modern science which describes the reactions between atoms and molecules, and tries to define and describe the behavior of physical matter. Alchemy is the spiritual science, which describes the inner transmutation process and to a certain degree, also a transmutation process of physical matter. Not so much the chemical reactions, but more spiritual reactions within our energy bodies, and on the physical plane. Certain very advanced alchemists in the past were understanding nuclear reactions, and happenings within the atomic nucleus. Richard, Cobra, what is a clairsentience? Cobra, clairsentience is an ability to feel sound and transmit information on the higher plane than the physical plane. Richard, is that a form of telepathy? Cobra, it is telepathy, but telepathy is just mental transmission, and clairsentience is much more than that. It is an ability to transmit sound and other forms of signals that are not just mental images or mental transmission. It is much more. Richard, I understand. I had an experience once when I was in a room and it was just a normal room and all of a sudden I smelled the scent of roses. Could that be clairsentience? Cobra, it is one aspect of it, yes. Lin, is there a difference between clairsentience and clairaudience? Cobra? Cobra, clairaudience is just focused on the sound aspect, where clairsentience includes other senses as well. Richard, what is a clairvoyance? Cobra, clairvoyance is the ability to see on the non-physical planes. Lin, Cobra, could you define hypnotism? Cobra, hypnotism is a practice of using human subconsciousness, and talking with human subconsciousness, when the conscious aspect of the self is not fully present or awake. Richard, is this a positive or a negative? Cobra, again it can be used for both positive and negative. Lin, would you describe what the physical plane is? Cobra, it is quite obvious the physical plane is the physical plane. Richard, Cobra, can you describe what the astral and the etheric plane are and how are they used? Cobra, the etheric plane is the energy plane. It is where sensitive people feel all those energies, they feel the etheric plane. It is the plane of our chakras, our nadis, our energy field. The astral plane is the plane of our emotions, our emotional body, and this is the plane that we usually visit when we are asleep in our dreams. Lin, what is the causal plane? Cobra, the causal plane is actually the higher mental plane. It is the plane of the archetypes from where our physical world and all other worlds are created. Richard, Cobra, will you now describe for us the mental plane? Cobra, the mental plane is the plane of the mind of the thought forms of the ideas. After we die and after we transmit through the etheric and astral plane for some time, we also spend time there before the next incarnation, we spend some time on the mental plane. This is the so-called paradise between two incarnations. Richard, I also know there is a calm where your imagination is formed, or your thoughts, where you do your manifestation. Cobra, this is exactly it, yes. Lin, what is the Satnam plane and will you describe it for us? Cobra, okay. Some people describe this as the plane of truth. Some people call it the Buddhic plane, or the spiritual plane, or the sixth dimension. It is the plane of pure love and light. Richard, Cobra, what are the biochemical codes for the ages of time? Cobra, it is the description that somebody uses, but I don't know exactly which context, so I cannot answer this question. Lin, iron is an important element in our blood currently. Will this change when we advance to the golden age? Cobra, This will change when we reach a certain level of vibrational frequency, but we're not there yet. Lynn, what is the Intergalactic Council, or IGC, and what is their specific duties? Cobra, again, this is a concept taken from somebody's work, but I would say that there are councils of every level of creation, and they regulate that particular level of creation in full harmony with the rest of the universe. Richard, Cobra, will you define the meaning and the purpose of the Prime Directive? Cobra, again, the Prime Directive as it was understood on this planet is not something that is actually happening. The non-interference concept that was introduced by the Archons to excuse the censorship that we have about the first contact. There are the races would like to contact us. Many positive races would like to contact us, and the reason why they are not contacting us is not because they would not respect our free will, but because the Archons and the Chimera group are preventing them from contacting us. Because our free will is for first contact and not against us. Lynn, this question is sort of related. This questioner is asking, what is the IGC enforcement, and why don't they act to stop the interference with the Earth human evolution, and all the free will violations that are currently going on? Cobra, yes, of course, I have answered this question so many times. The hostage situation is the real answer. The Chimera group is taking humanity hostage with their toplet bombs at the moment. They need to be removed and then the contact will happen. Richard, Cobra, this listener says, why are there so many people sick all the time? I feel sick for a few days, get better, and a week later the same thing will come back. This has been going on for a couple of years. I've been to doctors. I've been on many rounds of antibiotics, and never get better. I exercise and eat healthy. The freaky thing is lots of people are saying the same thing is happening to them too. Cobra, the basic reason is the plasma plane anomaly, which is going through a quite intense purification in the last few years, so the plasma poisoning is the main reason for most illnesses on this planet right now. This is now much worse than it was a few years ago. And it needs to be cleared completely before some of the conditions can be fully reversed. Lynn, this questioner is asking, I am wondering with Cobra's vast knowledge, if he knows if the cannabis, or marijuana, plant is native to Earth, or was it introduced here from another planet? Cobra, it was introduced here a long time ago from somewhere else. Lynn, were other plants introduced? Like aloe vera, which also has great medicinal value. Was this also from somewhere else? Cobra, yes, of course. Richard, Cobra, is it true what the Zetas are saying, that Planet X will be coming and cause a pole shift? Cobra, no, it is absolutely not true. Lynn, Cobra, can you offer any comments regarding Argonite? Many of us create and gift Argonite in the form of tower busters in order to protect our communities from EMF attack. Aside from cell towers, can you advise where our Argonite would be most effective? Cobra, the location of the so-called Gwen towers which are located across the US. Lynn, there are many people that are placing these Argonite around those, so that's really good. Cobra, the other thing that could be good is to look to position those Argonite around any kind of radar facilities around the US. Lynn, is there anything else you can think of that Argonite would be good for or how it could be used? Cobra, if those two things are covered it would be great. Those two aspects, the Gwen towers and the radar stations. Of course with the radar stations you can also include HARP and other facilities around the world. Richard, Cobra, is there an intelligence above Source? Cobra, Source is the intelligence. Richard, Cobra, how is Source and the Creator related? Cobra, I would not use the term Creator because it implies certain philosophical understanding which I would not agree with. I would say the source is the being that always existed and always will exist. This universe was not created by a certain source, it was created as interaction between the source and the primary anomaly. Richard, Cobra, what is the infinite void? Cobra, the infinite void is the emptiness which is the medium in which the source exists. Lin, Cobra, what is usually on the other side of a black hole? Cobra, a black hole is always an entry point into a wormhole, and on the other side, you exit through a white hole, the exit point of that wormhole. Richard, Cobra, what approximate percentage of the population of Earth is expected to ascend? Cobra, I will not answer this question for various reasons. Number 1, there is free will involved, and I would not want to limit human free will to a certain percentage. Number 2, even if I would know that question, that would be classified information at this point. Lin, after the event, how long will it take to transition our current monetary system into a fair and equitable financial system? Cobra, the actual transition will be very fast. After the moment of the event, we have, I would say, 1 to 2 weeks, when the banks will be closed, and when they reopen, we will have a much fairer, and much more balanced financial system, because it is being prepared already. And then we'll have a certain period of transition, where we will transcend the need for a financial system when we begin to realize that we have technology to manufacture and materialize everything we want on the physical plane. Money will become redundant. Lin, we keep getting repeated questions about the financial system, and the reset, and humanitarian funds. Just to satisfy this questioner, do you see any changes in this? Do you think there will be any funds released before the event? Cobra, it is, I will say on a planetary global scale, I would say no. Funds will be released at the moment of the event, and 1 to 2 weeks after the event, they will start being released. There will be limited cases where certain small amounts of funds can be released to a certain limited closed group before the event, but this is not what we are actually working for. We are working for a global planetary financial reset. Richard, what happens when a laser light passes through tachyonized crystal? Cobra, actually laser light is a very focused photon ray, which gets enriched on a quantum level by those tachyons. I would say the quantum signature of those quanta changes. It gets harmonized. The quantum fluctuations around those photons get harmonized. So laser light by itself is already a coherent source of photons, and when it passes through a tachyonized crystal, we have an additional harmonization happening there. So I would say the healing effect of such laser light, if you're using that laser light, for example, for healing, it can be greatly magnified. Lin, the next question is from our Prepare for Change group in Japan. They would like clarification on the number 144,000. It is talked about in the Bible, the story of Sanat Kumara, the critical mass, and many other places. Why this number Cobra? Cobra, 12 times 12 times 1000. It's a symbolic number which has a very powerful meaning in sacred geometry of numbers, and it's also an actual number of people who are selected, of souls who are selected at certain points to enter in this planetary quarantine to transform it. 1. I would say a small percentage of those people have already awakened to their mission, and more of them will awaken in the future. Richard, Cobra, this listener's question is, by what name do other races call this solar system and planet? Cobra, each race and each civilization have their own names for this solar system and this planet. Richard, what do the Pleiadians call this planet and solar system? Cobra, they call this planet the blue jewel. Lin, what is the best way to connect to Earth Soul or the living Earth being, Mother Nature? Cobra, the best way to connect is of course through nature. Nature is an expression of the breath of the life of the planetary entity, and each person has her and his own way of connecting, so I'm not here to tell you how you do that. Lynn, what name does this being resonate with the most? Cobra, again, different cultures, different people have different names for this entity. It's not important the name. What is important is the true heart connection with that being. Richard, Cobra, how can we connect to the angelic entities? Cobra, simply by invoking them, connecting with them, meditation. You can read a little bit about them so you have an idea of who they are, and then connect with them in any way possible. Lynn, Cobra, do you have any final words for our listeners? Maybe talk about the upcoming Ascension Conference in Crete, June 4th and 5th, 2016. Cobra, yes, we have an Ascension Conference in Crete very soon. Actually, we're starting at the end of next week, and I, of course, am inviting everybody to attend. It will be very interesting. It will be the next step after the conference in Switzerland. As I have said in the last interview, things are getting a little bit